Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Mic check 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We got a mic checked. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or whatever it is. What's up, everybody? Yeah, that's right. We here. December 1st, 2024. The Box Source podcast here is live on YouTube and Rumble. Big ups for everyone listening live. You participate in the live chat and what's going on. We already got our early entry here. My guy L Dub Boxing in the building. Shout out to L Dub Boxing. You know what I'm saying? Y'all can check him out. L Dub Boxing here on YouTube. Not sure if he has went on to talk about the WBA rankings, because the WBA rankings, had just been released. And that's my guy, bro, L Dub. He goes through the boxing rankings once they get released. So I don't know if he went through the WBA rankings yet to talk about any changes that's been going on with the WBA. And we got the Oxtail King in the building here. Brother Trill Clinton is on here, man, to chop it up here live, on the chat there. You know what I'm saying? Hit the like button, hit the share button. We appreciate the support here through the Boxing Source. We got, of course, a few things here that we got to get sorted out. We got a few things here that we got to get sorted out with what's going on here. I know that we had what's been happening over in the UK. I know that Sonny Edwards said that was his last ride of sorts there after getting beat up by Galal Yafai, man. He got torched up. He got torched up. Big ups to Bruce Gas, Boxes, Jazz, and more in the building here live. But yeah, over the course of the week, we've been talking about what could potentially happen in 2025, particularly in February of 2025. Now, Wednesday on the midweek report, we kind of touched on this a little bit because we were talking about this being a potential bout that would be out there for February 22nd. But at that particular time, I pretty much said, from a realist perspective, it was going to be difficult to try to pull off some type of fight like that or a quick turnaround there for Jerome Boots Ennis. But I wouldn't have minded it at all. They were down for it. They were okay for it at the time. But what ended up happening was something completely different, at least according to Eddie Hearn. So we're going to get into that here. Should have it queued up, as far as like what Eddie Hearn was talking about, because, of course, Eddie Hearn had the whole thing going on with the matchroom card with that Galal Yafai and Sonny Edwards. And after that, he talked with, Andy Purewall of Boxing News out there in the UK. And one of the last, questions that was brought up by Andy Purewall was about the whole thing between Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz. A shout out to our guy Jay in the building. What's happening with you, Jay? It's been a good little minute since you've been able to join on here in the podcast. Thankful for you to get back on here a little bit. So talk about this whole thing with what Eddie Hearn was talking about, and seeing it here if I could go ahead and cue that clip. You feel me? So let me see here, man, because of course I'm dealing with this whole little Rumble thing and whatnot when it comes to live. So I'm getting a gist of everything right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm getting the hang of it. It's looking pretty good. Doing the whole thing there. So we're going to see if we can cue this up, right? And this is Eddie Hearn, of course, who promotes Jerome Boots Ennis, and he'll talk about what basically happened over the previous few days when it came to this whole thing with Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz Jr. So I will try to go ahead and get this thing queued up. And let's get it queued up. All right. So we're going to have Eddie Hearn here queued up. There he goes. You see he got like a smug little look on his face or whatever it is. And we'll see here when Andy Purewall could have asked him a question about the whole thing there with Jerome Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz Jr. So let's go.
Eddie, on the Ortiz Ennis situation. There's been a lot of confusion around it. I've seen the reports that apparently at the last minute there's a change in when he needs to be at 147 instead of 154. Can you clarify?
Never a last minute change for it to be at 147. We received an offer about 3 days ago for the fight at 147. Not from us, not us trying to get the fight at 147. That is how it was written in the offer to us. We took it back to Giron. Obviously, that's fine with us. We went back to them and say, yes, we'll accept, but are you sure this is at 47? They went away. They came back and they said, no, we've spoke to Golden Boy. Sorry, it would be at 154. You got to vacate your title. Okay, well, this is a big decision. We're going to have to go back. This was about 24, 48 hours ago. On Thanksgiving, we were asked to make a decision, and the answer was, I just don't know. I'm not ready to make a decision if I'm going to vacate my belt. And that's it. And that's all it is. So if we've got time to make a decision, maybe he does it. But if it's to make a decision tonight or tomorrow, I'm not sure he will. If he moves to 54, he'll 100% fight Vergil Ortiz. If he doesn't, he'll unify at 147. And that's over to him.
Last one already.
Now, I just wanted to get that little part there because, you know, what's this thing? Jay says Boots versus Jake Paul in the works. Come on, man. Come on, Jay. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right. So with what was said there initially, Eddie Hearn is saying that there was an offer that was sent off to them, right? And that the offer was for Juwan Boots Ennis to fight Vergil Ortiz at 147 pounds. That particular offer was, you know, favorable in reference to his side. So with them saying, hey, we're in favor of that, and return that back and said, okay, but oh, wait, it's not at 147 pounds. I'm sorry, it's at 154. And with it being at 154, that's a little bit of an issue, you know, when it comes to Juwan Boots Ennis being the IBF welterweight champion. This is a guy in Juwan Boots Ennis that had been the top guy there rated at the IBF for some time. It was about like a couple of years. You know, it didn't take until this year for him to basically have the belt, because he was at number 1 in 2022, had that win over, what was it? You know, back in April 22 or whatever it was, right? And after that, well, it was April, it was May, because it was over there at in California when he had that win, right? Easy work, you know, second round win, easy work, you know. And then after that, he was just waiting it out. Of course, he had that undisputed title fight between Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. And after that, with him being the IBF mandatory, he exercised that IBF mandatory. Terrence Crawford was the champion at the time. Terrence Crawford ended up declining that particular fight, or not going forward with that fight and moving up to 154 pounds. So that is how Boots Ennis ended up being the IBF champion at welterweight. But he was at one point the interim champion until they fully stated that you would have Juwan Boots Ennis as the IBF champion. And what did he do as the IBF champion? Have 2 defenses of that IBF belt, one against a mandatory challenger in Karen Chikazi, which was in November. All right. So if you're a guy that's pretty much had his intentions on being a unified or try to be an undisputed champion at 147 pounds, why would you have one defense pretty much like one? Yeah, it's Casio Clayton. I couldn't even think of that man's name, man. Listen, man, I've been going to so many goddamn events, man. And, man, I'm telling you, when you go to all these freaking events and all that joint, man, I'll be telling you, man. Hey, man, Gritty in the building, man. What's going on, Gritty? Yo, Gritty in the building in the live chat. What's up with you? But yeah, man, I'll be going to all these events, man. I'm like, man, that was so far ago, man. I had to like go back to like photos there for that, man. Yo, the Boots versus Clayton, that Charlo Casano rematch out there in California. That was something. But you had that thing 2 years ago. You fast forward there 2023. I don't address people as email champs, Bruce. I don't do that. You don't want to get me started on that. I don't do that, because people don't keep the same energy when it comes to other people getting the world title once it was vacated. So if they don't talk about that with other people, then I don't address it in any other fashion. Because I know a few fighters that supposedly were email champions, but they get a whole lot more praise than other fighters that get that same title. So I don't address it like that. All right, so back to the same with the Boots Ennis, right? All right. So he's an IBF interim champion, becomes IBF champion since Terrence Crawford didn't, decline to go ahead and fight Jerome Boots Ennis for that IBF mandatory. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. Now, Boots Ennis gets his fight, his first fight there in July, right? Against David Evanesian. Then he has his fight here in November 9th, against Karen Chikadzian, who became the IBF mandatory. So after that, he's like, yo, I want to go after these belts. I want to have these, unified title fights. You have Mario Barrios. You have Ian Stanionis. You have Brian Norman Jr. He said, hey, he's there at, 146 pounds. He said, hey, if you can make it there at 146, then he could continue to make it to the welterweight limit and fight for those, other titles that Mario Barrios or Iman Stanionis or Brian Norman Jr. has, right? So there wasn't like any definitive intent for him to move up to 154, with the exception of one fighter. And we all know that one fighter is not interested in fighting Jerome Boots Ennis. So there really wasn't much of a point for Boots Ennis to move up to 154 and relinquish his IBF title, because that's like, part of what he's trying to do is his intent on being a unified and then eventually undisputed champion at 147 pounds. So with that being said, with this particular offer that was presented in reference to Vergil Ortiz, if they said it was at 147, and cool, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, exactly, L-Dub, exactly. And we all know that people don't view Lennox Lewis as an email champion. And man, I don't even want to get started with Lennox Lewis. Just being real, I don't even want to get started with Lennox Lewis. That's a whole, come on, y'all. Given the history of what's been going down on the Boxing Source podcast, yeah, nah. All right, so with Boots Ennis, IBF champion, already, getting his mandatory defense out of the way, because remember, he was trying to get a unification belt before having this thing be a mandatory defense. Gets it out of the way. Now he's cleared to have a unification belt. And, according to reports, that was, what they were working on, in particular with a certain fighter that holds a belt that has not been, in the ring for some time. And that particular fighter's mandatory is a Matchroom fighter, Chakram Giasov. So that gives you an idea of who that is, right? So with that being said, if they're working on trying to get a unification, yeah, you could have something here with Vergil Ortiz, but if you end up giving up the IBF title, then what's the point? You're fighting Vergil Ortiz for what, a WBC interim belt that he just won there against Sergey Borychuk, and you're having a quick turnaround. You know what I'm saying? Adam Hurley, no, not necessarily. At least not right now. Not necessarily having a guest on, but I'll say this for tomorrow. We got like two things going down tomorrow, right? We're gonna have scheduled on just real quick. Otto Wallin, of course, he has his upcoming bout against Derek Chisora, right? Should be February 8th, right? So I'm gonna have Otto Wallin, and then hopefully later on in the day tomorrow, I will have Iceman John Scully. So it's gonna be a busy day tomorrow, okay? But yeah, for today, ain't necessarily got nothing scheduled for today. I tried to work on something for that, but didn't necessarily work. All right, cool. So yeah, with Boots Ennis, there's an IBF champion looking for unification belts. We all know about Mario Barrios that had his recent bout there against Abel Ramos that ended up being a draw, right? You got Ian Stanionis that, is WBA champion, but has not been active and was a guy that could have fought Vergil Ortiz Jr., but how many delays and ended up being canceled when it came to that particular fight? It took about the whole year. Otto Wallin. So we're gonna have Otto Wallin scheduled for tomorrow afternoon. Should be around 3:45 p.m. Eastern time. That's what it's scheduled for. We got it scheduled on there, for the YouTube. So you'll be able to watch live on YouTube there while we on with All In Wallin. All right, so we about to get one of these our great guests here in a little bit. So you got the whole thing with Mario Barrios. The whole thing with Iman Stanionis, WBA champion. Brian Norman Jr., we all know about what happened, the whole thing with Brian Norman Jr., where he was originally slated to fight on November 8th in Norfolk, but, injury got him out of that. As far as I know, right now, he's probably still scheduled to fight Derek Cuevas. So that kind of like opens the door for like options for Boots to fight either Mario Barrios and Iman Stanionis. And it's like working towards maybe Iman Stanionis, right? So if they got that going on, why would they give all that up for a fighter in Vergil Ortiz that is just like a WBC interim champion? That's number one. And then number two, this goes into what I've said multiple times over. Teams for fighters, depending on their connects, could make things more than what they actually are. And in this case of Vergil Ortiz, that's what happened here, right? Because you had his manager, you had like his promoter, all of them talking about, oh, well, we try to get this happening, or we try to get this jumping off, or whatever it was, and they're like, no, that's not it. That's not what the deal was. When it was that they didn't necessarily get all that information, the clear information, when it came to the specifics. 147, they were down with. 154, they were unsure about. And if they were given a certain time frame to try to get that done, that doesn't really fly very well. You know what I mean? Listen, I have no issue if Vergil Ortiz Jr. ends up fighting Xander Zayas, which is pretty much being the supposed thing that's going on right now. But what I have an issue with is that if you have an intention on fighting one fighter, don't make it to where you're saying, oh, we tried to make this happen, but they didn't say anything, or they didn't do that, when we know the deal. And this has happened multiple times before. I brought this example up one time before when it came to earlier this year. Tim Tszyu, his team said that, oh, we tried to make a fight with Erickson Lubin. We sent out an offer to Erickson Lubin, but Erickson Lubin declined. And Erickson Lubin was like, what the fuck? We ain't getting no fucking offer. You crazy? But then it was, the whole thing with Tim Tszyu. He ended up, at the time, was going to fight Keith Thurman. I don't even, at that particular point, hey, Tim Tszyu, Keith Thurman, hey, why not? Okay, cool. But don't try to bring up somebody else talking about, oh, well, they declined this, so they're ducking. Eldo says Teofimo created the term email champion. He ain't nobody to call. That's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. That's absolutely true. Oh man. But yeah, I was bringing up that example with Tim Tszyu. Like he's ended up fighting Keith Thurman at the time. So why bring up saying that you could be fighting Erickson Lubin if you got Keith Thurman lined up? I wonder, it's Keith Thurman, so just go off of that. But nope, just wanted to bring in the name, talking about, oh, well, they tried to fight this guy. And then we all know what happened. And then it wasn't Keith Thurman. Ended up being Sebastian Fundora. And that fight on March 30th ended up being an absolute bloodbath, and Sebastian Fundora ended up getting the decision. And actually, that wasn't the first time they tried that with Erickson Lubin. They tried it again with Erickson Lubin, and Erickson Lubin said, "Hey, I had an injury. As far as this particular date, I'm not necessarily ready, but if you wait a little bit, we could make it happen." They didn't do that. And we all know what happened. We all know what happened with Tim Tszyu after that. Oh well. But now with Vergil Ortiz, it's like, okay, if you know, at least, okay, this is what I'm saying. Vergil Ortiz most likely knew about when he would be ready for his next fight and when that would kind of like take place. All right. So you have Vergil Ortiz Jr. His last bout was what? July 10th. Gets out of that bout, has a little bit of rest, then, talks with his team and says, "Hey, around this particular time, this is when I'll be ready." So, at least for me, I would have said that he had a timetable by late October. That's before Boots Ennis had his fight with Karen Chikazian. So, if Vergil Ortiz already knew about the date, then he could just go around and say, "Hey, all right, I have this hard date. Take it or leave it." And it's Vergil Ortiz. We're talking about Vergil Ortiz, just being real. We're talking about Vergil Ortiz. Yeah, he has an interim championship, but he hasn't had not one world championship, full championship yet. Never fought for it. Didn't fight for it at 147. Remember, he was at number 1 in the WBO at 147 at one point. But was Oscar De La Hoya willing to have him face Terrence Crawford at that time? Nope. Nope. So now he goes up here to 154, full-fledged at 154. Like I said, had 3 fights this year at 154, with that last one being against Sergey Boychuk. Now he wants to go ahead and try to say bring up Boots Ennis to 154 and have that be the first fight. No, I don't see where that gets at. I don't see where that's going. In fact, I said this from a while ago. Vergil Ortiz Jr. is there under Golden Boy Promotions. They recently signed Charles Conwell under Golden Boy Promotions. If I'm not mistaken, wasn't Charles Conwell on that same card on July 10th? You know what I'm saying? Wasn't he on that card on July 10th? That would have been the setup. I would have been like, "Hey, listen, I would have no issue with having Vergil Ortiz fighting Charles Conwell. You could have that as a headline bout. And, at least for me, right, you could put that in Texas, right? Go ahead and put it in Texas. Build up Vergil Ortiz, right? Go ahead and build him up and just say, "Hey, we got this guy here that's ready, that is, pretty much preparing himself to fight for a full world title at 154 pounds, having these wins, over Sergey Boychuk, and then potentially against, a Charles Conwell." And yes, Charles Conwell was on that card on August 10th. So why not have the in-house fight? I don't see what the issue is. We got Bruce Gas watching Jazz and Moore says, "World titles are becoming more and more worthless. And more of these fighters are paying the sanctioning fees for these belts." Hey, that kind of like brings me back to the press conference with Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford in New York City, where Errol Spence had that comment about, these sanctioning bodies and talk about, these sanctioning fees and where are these sanctioning fees going. Hey, I'm telling you, it's getting like out of hand. In some cases, it's getting real out of hand. I want to see here if my guy, the Boxer Academic, is ready to rock here. He's been on the queue here for a good little bit. If he got some thoughts on at least this initial topic, this first topic, when it comes to Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz, if he's checking in here. Boxer Academic, you with us?
Yes, sir. How you doing today?
Yo, what's going on, Boxer Academic?
Yep. Yeah. So I just want to make sure I understand what's going on. From what I heard you say, Boots and Vergil Ortiz were in the initial talks about starting the fight. Um, Boots ended up getting a more lucrative offer in terms of what he can get with fighting other people, and they didn't necessarily go forward with it because he thinking of the spoils from other stuff.
No,
And
not
then
no.
Vergil, yeah, this question mark. I don't know what's going
Yeah.
on.
So yeah. Before you got on, I played the clip there of Eddie Hearn, and Eddie Hearn was saying that they received an offer to fight Vergil Ortiz Jr. and it would have been at 147 pounds. With that offer being out there, they were going to accept that. There were no negotiations. It was just an offer, according to Eddie Hearn. And with that offer, they said, hey, okay, if it's at 147, cool. We're down. We'll go for it. So they sent that back saying, hey, okay, that's what we're good for at 147 pounds. And then they had a response saying that no, it's not at 147, it's at 154. And with it being at 154, that was the major hangup. And it was also added that they only gave like a couple of days to respond to agreeing to 154 pounds, or they would have pulled it.
And Vergil Ortiz can't get back down to 147, correct?
Certainly can't.
But it is more advantageous to Boots for the fight to happen at 147.
Well, as of right now, it probably would be. But the thing for me is, it's like, why offer about to Boots Ennis at 147 pounds initially, if you know that you're not going to be able to, if you know that he's not going to get down to 147 as far as like Vergil Ortiz, number one, and then number two, given the whole aspect of things, you got Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz, pretty much around the same age range. If you have Vergil Ortiz like build himself up there at 154 and then have Boots Ennis, do his thing at 147 and then come up to 154 in 2025 and have one or two fights there at 154, y'all could create a super fight between Boots Ennis and Vergil Ortiz at 154 pounds. What is the point of having that fight happen right now? That's my thing about it.
And the way you described it, if it was contracted at 147 originally, then they changed it and said no 154, that's more of a bait and switch. Like, let me get you on the hook, but then once you're on the hook, I'm actually gonna put a different type of bait, a lower, whatever type of bait on there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's pretty much what it's doing there in this particular sense. But I kind of like said here that it's been like a PR move, because there's been comments initially like from a few days ago coming from Vergil Ortiz's team saying that Boots say you do this, and Boots Ennis was talking about this and all that type of stuff. And for me, it's like, well, number one, y'all really ain't like part of the whole thing when it comes to the negotiations, whatever it is. But also, number two, if y'all pretty much knew about the timetable for Vergil Ortiz, and y'all knew that he had like a date, and they were talking about, oh, this is the date where we want to have him fight, then you already knew what the schedule was for Boots Ennis. If Boots Ennis had a fight in July and a fight in November, it was going to be highly unlikely that he was going to turn right around and have another fight in February. And then on top of that, have that particular fight at 154 pounds. Now, if you would have said, hey, you can have it like in mid to late March or in April, then most likely he would be okay with it. But if y'all giving that hard date of like February or mid-February, then it's like he would like have to be right back in camp after just having this fight. Like, you have what, November 9th, you have your fight, pretty much around 2 weeks off or so, and then so soon after that, you're gonna have him try to agree to terms to a fight that would be in February, and then go right back into camp. Yeah, I don't see that. That's a rarity, especially at that particular level in boxing. That's rare. You don't see guys that like say, hey, okay, we're fighting this date, and then we're fighting like 3 or 4 months later, and then another fight 3 months later. Nah. You don't see that in boxing. Not at that level. Not a world champion. Nope. You don't see that.
Yeah. I don't really have no real thoughts on it. I mean, I think this is the dance that you play in the politics of boxing, and it's not that exciting to me. Like, I'm not one. Like, I obviously I want to see the fight get made, but to each person, like 147 obviously would favor Boots, and that's what they came in thinking the fight would be contracted at. But 154 would favor Vergil Ortiz. I mean, and then you got all the politics in between. It is what it is, you know. Like, I want to see the fight, but they have to worry about their affairs. So,
shout out to Timothy Taylor, on the live chat. He says Terrence Crawford also turned down the Boots Ennis fight from the Saudi promoter. Hey, thing with Turkey LLC, V offers a fight, there, at least particularly with Terrence Crawford. If Terrence Crawford isn't down for it, then Terrence Crawford isn't down for it. I've said this, for Terrence Crawford, it looks like Canelo or bust, and if it's not Canelo, then, hey, don't be surprised if you really don't see Terrence Crawford, there for some time. Now, at least for me, I'll say this. I wouldn't have minded if you would have had Terrence Crawford versus Vergil Ortiz. They're both having fights at 154 currently. Why not go ahead and match them two up? I don't see any issue with that. But if you know that there's a fighter that has clear intentions and clear plans and has made those plans known to their promoter and said for their promoter to make that happen, then that's their particular job. Anything outside of that, unless if it's something that's really huge and worth doing, then there's no point in going for it. And like I said there with Vergil Ortiz, y'all could make this a much bigger fight than if it would have happened in February. So what's the point of trying to break, have it happen now? I don't see why. And the thing on top of this is, from a PR perspective, I've mentioned it before. It's like certain teams do this in order to have their fighter viewed in a certain light and have another fighter, be pretty much criticized and all that type of stuff. And what we're seeing right now is that, they're saying, oh my God, look at Boots Ennis. Oh, he's ducking. Oh, he's doing this. He declined to fight with Vergil Ortiz. Oh, who's Vergil Ortiz? Just being honest with y'all. Who is Vergil Ortiz in order to try to call shots when it comes to Jerome Boots Ennis? Jerome Boots Ennis is a full world champion. Vergil Ortiz is an interim champion. That's for starters. Boots Ennis has headlined 2 fights at the Wells Fargo Center. Vergil Ortiz has headlined fights, not necessarily in his hometown like that, but doesn't really pull what Jerome Boots Ennis has pulled in his previous 2 fights. But yet, Vergil Ortiz and Golden Boy will be calling the shots? Nah, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Tim Teller says, to be fair, Vergil Ortiz has pulled out of 4 of his last 7 fights and struggling to make weight at 154 pounds, fighting at catch weights. Vergil Ortiz is unreliable. That's a real point. That's a real point. And I brought up the whole thing with Vergil Ortiz and Iamana Stanionis. How many times did that particular fight get rescheduled and then ended up getting canceled? One, in the side of Stanionis had like a complication that forced him to be in the hospital, but also here with Vergil Ortiz and his condition, him being like supremely overweight, and that's why he ended up going to 154 in the first place. You know what I'm saying? Miss B in the live chat. Come on, man. I don't know, man. We'll probably have to see if we could get Mr. Williams scheduled for a bout and then see where he's gonna be fighting at. All right, yeah. So yeah, Vergil Ortiz has had multiple instances where fights have been rescheduled there where he didn't necessarily, where he couldn't make weight or he was just way out of it, So that would be something too. It's like, okay, you mean to tell me that you want my fighter to go up to 154 against someone in Vergil Ortiz who, isn't necessarily fully reliable there, at 147 and particularly at 154. I'm not all too cool with that. Like those two fights that he had before his bout against Sergey Boychuk, he was able to have it to where it's a 2-pound weight limit above 154 pounds. And he was there like 156 against Frederick Lawson, and then 155 against Thomas Delorme. And yeah, I did make comments in the last thing there, reference to a Vergil Ortiz fighting Thomas Delorme. Like, come on, man. What are we doing, y'all? Thomas Delorme, y'all got to do better than that. Y'all got to do better than that. All right? So Vergil Ortiz, I know that there was something there in reference to Xander Zayas saying that he would be down for the fight. Like I said, I don't mind it. I don't mind that fight. Xander Zayas is young guy, young fighter up there in the rankings, particularly in the WBO, right? He's kind of like held a fairly high position in the WBO rankings when it came to the super welterweight division. Actually, he's currently at number 1 in the WBO, right? Number 5 in the IBF. So, hey, listen, if you want to have that fight between those two guys, I don't mind it. My thing is, don't bring somebody else in there. Don't bring somebody else in there to try to create some type of buzz. Just be who you are. That should be enough for you to create that type of buzz in order for you to fight whoever you were going to fight, that fans would be interested in you. You don't have to bring up another person's name for that. You know what I'm saying? He said, Boots has no belts at 154 pounds, so Vergil Ortiz would miss weight on purpose. Well, yeah, but if he does that, then he would end up losing the WBC interim title. He's a WBC interim champion right now, so that bout would have to be at a contracted weight of 154 pounds if they were going to have it there at the super welterweight limit. Like, having one of those titles locks you down to that. So that would be it. Now, like I said, I mean, if it was, something there where they could have said, you know what, if it isn't a hard February date, it could be like later in March or in April, then yeah, cool. Okay, we have the time to properly promote it. You'll properly get prepared and all that type of stuff, and it'll be no problem. But outside of that, if you're gonna go like with that type of turnaround, when your last fight was on July 10th, you know what? Nah, what's going on? Ron's man in the building here on the Boxing Source podcast, man. What's happening with you? You know what I'm saying? All right, what was that? That's like, about chopped it up about that for like, 30 minutes or so, or whatever it is. Man, I should, try to do a thing for a call-in line, but I don't feel like setting that up here right now. Wanted to, kind of get into, what's coming up next week, right? Know that we got, some fights that are, out there for top rank. Should be over in the West Coast. You got 2 rematches that will be part of that. But we also will be getting officially prepared for the bout that will happen at Barclays Center on March 1st. You're going to have Gervonta Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach Jr. for the WBA lightweight title. Yeah, it was supposed to be in Houston there, but didn't necessarily happen in Houston. I'm sorry My guy, shout out to my guy, out there in Houston, whatever it is, Houston area, Brother Trill. Yeah, they thought about having a fight out there, but they just scrapped it. And then when they rescheduled it, they said, "Hey, we're gonna have it over in the Barclays." And you got two guys from the DC area. I feel like it's best to have it over in the East Coast. You feel me? So we're gonna have it at the Barclays. They're gonna have the press conference that's scheduled for Tuesday at 1:00 or whatever it is, 1 or 2 o'clock. Hopefully I'll be out there covering it, and just looking forward to this. I mean, like I said, I've had the conversation there with Lamont Roach Jr. Over at his gym there a couple weeks back. He said he's definitely ready for this particular fight, and that this is like an old rivalry. You know what I'm saying? This guy Trill says oxtail discrimination. Yeah, man. Yeah, but sorry, man. I had to. I guess they had to just say, "Hey, man, we just gonna have to keep this over in the East Coast, man." Maybe the next one, they'll have over there, close over to Houston or something like that. Because it was supposed to be at the Toyota Center, but couldn't necessarily make it out there to the Toyota Center, man. But yeah, they like having this thing here for March 1st, Barclays Center. That's going to be a good fight. Very, very good fight between these two. They have a history, between each other. That's the thing that a lot of fight fans don't realize is that, these guys were like top fighters there in the amateur ranks. They were top, they're top, like number one, number two around their weight class in the amateur ranks. And what has it been since 2011 since their last competition? So they've had like a couple of fights, out there in the amateur ranks. And, you had the thing there where Tank Davis was able to, get the best of them there a little bit. But we're going to see like what happens there with that, man. Pay versus Brown all over again. Man, we'll see. But I think it's going to be a really, really good scrap there. And, if y'all haven't done so already, you can go ahead and check the conversation I had with Lamont Roach Jr. They're over at their gym. I'll see if I could, make a return trip out there. I know that, with Lamont Roach Sr., he's getting, the amateurs prepared for nationals that's coming up here in a couple weeks. But outside of that, I'm going to see if I could, get more from, them in that camp here as they prepare for the fight against Gervonta Tank Davis. And on the other side, you got Tank Davis here, of course, over at Upton Gym, Baltimore. Shout out to my guys, Rise Inc., the Rise Podcast. They're, of course, being there at Upton Gym. Coach C. Cobbs, Coach Squeeze there, talking with Coach Kenny Ellis and Coach Calvin Ford. So we have like a whole little DMV thing going on there, at least for the main event. We got to see what's going on with the undercard because there was some buzz that we could have Gary Antoine Russell against Rayo Valenzuela. However, Rayo Valenzuela is going through a little bit of legal stuff right now. So unless if we know that stuff is getting straight or whatever it is, pretty soon, then as far as like that fight is concerned, not necessarily, sure that particular fight is going to happen. But I will say, my bad on my part because, last week I was out there by the gym for, the Russells. Didn't really get much as far as like much information as far as like that particular fight, if that was going down or not. You know what I mean? But other than that, we're going to see if we could try to get some more information. You feel me? He says, I'm from Baltimore. We not part of the DM. Yeah, you know what? I slipped up on that. Because shout out to you, Bronze Man. You're exactly right. Baltimore is not part of the DMV. That's been a discussion for a while, and folks gotta get it right. Baltimore is not part of the DMV. All right. Oh man. Shout out to Tim Taylor. He asked this question. Who will be exposed as a fraud when Benavidez fights Burrell, or will it be a war? It will be a war. It will be an absolute war. I'm definitely looking forward to this. That particular fight is like one of the, at least for me, one of the most anticipated fights in boxing, because you got, of course, David Benavidez, former WBC super middleweight champion. You got David Morrell Jr., WBA regular champion at super middleweight, and then WBA regular champion at light heavyweight. And you got David Benavidez as the WBC interim champion at light heavyweight right now. Right? I'm over in the VA side. Or close to the VA side, yeah. So with these two fighters, they've been talking about potentially fighting each other when they were at super middleweight. But, of course, with Coach Ronnie Shields, he's said this multiple times, that they approached about fighting David Morrell Jr. when he was around 3-0. And Coach Ronnie said, hey, just give me some time with Osvari, is his middle name there. And we'll get back, when he's about, 6, 7, 8-0. The M stands for Maryland or Merlin. Murrland, Merlin. All right. That's what it stands for. But yeah, so Coach Ronnie Shields talking about just get back at us when we're about like 7-0, 8-0. Didn't necessarily happen. We know what was going on with David Benavidez. He was trying to get that fight with Santos or Alvarez Barragan. Of course, that fight didn't happen. So now you got David Benavidez, their light heavyweight, and getting that interim championship at light heavyweight, and you got David Morrell Jr. there with the WBA title. And of course, you had the whole thing with the undisputed at the top there with Baturviev and Bivol. And now you're going to have two guys there that you could say could be the top five of light heavyweight rankings with David Benavidez and David Morrell Jr. That's going to be a definite great bout. Oh, my guy from Ring Rock Boxing Podcast is in the building. He says, who will be the replacement for Boots versus or Ortiz to fight? Like I said, if he didn't necessarily have that date of February that he was going for, why not just have a fight where you're headlining against Charles Conwell in a Golden Boy Promotions fight and have it over in Texas? That would be my thing. You just had Charles Conwell sign with Golden Boy Promotions. He was on the card for Vergil Ortiz versus Sorey Boachuk. Why not go ahead and just have that fight? That's how I put it. That's how I put it. You know what I mean? Baltimore's in Maryland, but it's not okay. We got okay. Let's get this situated. All right. The DMV basically means the Beltway surrounding Washington, D.C. It's Interstate 495 that goes around D.C. and it goes from parts of Maryland, just a little bit, like a few miles off of where D.C. is, or the D.C. border. So it's like no larger than like 10 to 15 miles out of D.C. Baltimore is like a 4-hour drive plus from Washington, D.C. Therefore, it's not the DMV. That's like saying Annapolis, Maryland is part of the DMV. It's not. No.
So all of the parts that touch DC.
Pretty much all the parts that touch DC is DMV. And a little bit like outside of that, yeah. But yeah, if you talking about like Annapolis, Maryland, or something like that, nah. That's too far. Like Towson, Maryland, nah, that's too far. Nope. Yeah. So Baltimore, definitely not. You know what I'm saying? So that's the thing about it. Tim Taylor, shout out to you, man. He says Morrell never had a legit step up fight, so I'm skeptical. They might be cashing Morrell out. Nope. They're not. Like I said, this particular fight is something that David Morrell Jr. and Coach Ronnie Shields have been, preparing for some time now. So if they say they're ready right now, they're ready right now. And if you saw the press conference between them two, hey, whatever, especially when you had David Morrell saying a whole bunch of stuff, and then who was it? The interpreter there, man, Martine Bader trying to interpret it. That was hilarious. That was absolutely hilarious there. You know what I'm saying? Largo, yeah, because listen, Largo, of course, is out there in the DC metro area. We got the metro, goes over to Largo. That's pretty much as far as it goes, as far as like the blue line and all that type of stuff. Just getting technical with it. So yeah, Largo, yeah, you pretty much call that the DMV, but like Annapolis, Towson, nah, you can't do that. Nope. Feel me? So, but yeah, that David Morrell, David Benavidez fight, that's going to be a definitely a good scrap in there. And I like the card too. That card is shaping up to be a really good card. You should have that rematch there, with what was it? The Heartbreaker there versus the Heartbreaker. It should be like they trying to call him like the Heartbreak Kid or something. You know what I'm saying? So you got you got Brandon Figueroa there against Stephen Fulton. That's definitely going to be a great bout. You're going to have Isaac Cruz on there against Angel Fierro, and Jesus Ramos Jr. against former unified champion at 154 pounds, Jason Rosario. Those 4 fights, yeah, I'm liking that card there. That's going to be scheduled for February 1st at the T-Mobile Arena. That's a great card. Great card.
You going to that fight?
Yeah, I'm gonna see about going to that fight, man. Because I was supposed to be at the what was it? The Benavidez versus Plant fight was a couple of years ago, and didn't quite make it. So I gotta be at one of these joints, man. I gotta be at one of these joints. You feel me?
I'm gonna look at everything to see if I can go out to Vegas. We can have us a guys trip in Vegas.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see about like having a boxing thing or whatever it is, and go out to Vegas for that particular fight joint, man. He says, "You got Morrell or the Mexican Monster?" I made my pick. For a while. I'm leaning towards David Morrell Jr. Shout out to my guy Ringwalk Boxing Podcast. He says, "Yeah, man." So shout out to my guy. With the contributions out there, man. Hold on. Let me see here. Said Andre never had a legit step-up fight before he fought David Benavidez and got stopped. Yeah, but I mean, the thing was, Demetrius Andrade was there as a super middleweight. Excuse me. He was there as a middleweight coming to 168 against a guy in David Benavidez that came in that was a 168 guy that, like, folks know he kind of rocks around at like around 190, probably around 195. And y'all saw that in the ring. Like, y'all saw the difference between those two. It was like, oh yeah, because those first few rounds you saw, Demetrius Andrade like getting it in or trying to, outbox David Benavidez. But once David Benavidez just said, you know what, man, these punches ain't facing me. I'm gonna just walk through them. Feel me?
Step up or not, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah, that's the thing about it. Shout out to Tim Taylor. He says, "What is Caleb Plant's future at 168 pounds? Will he get a big fight in 2025?" Good question. I think he's positioning himself to try to be a world champion once again. I did say that after his last fight that he could probably, try to go after the IBF title. At the time, it was vacant. When you had William Skoll versus Vladimir Shishkin, and given what was going on in that particular fight, we might end up having a rematch between Skoll and Shishkin for that IBF title. But outside of that, for Caleb Plant, I say that there's a few good matchups out there at super middleweight. It just depends on like what you could try to position them for. Hey, maybe Demetrius Andrade if he's still there at 168. You can have that. But a lot of the other fighters are there that are contenders at 168. They ain't necessarily available there for Caleb Plant. We recently got announcement there that Diego Pacheco is going to be fighting Steven Nelson there at 168, which I feel like is a really, really good fight. Like Christian and Billy, I don't think they would have him available for Caleb Plant. They look like they want to try to get Christian and Billy to fight Canelo Alvarez for those unified titles that Canelo has. So, yeah, I don't know. And the whole thing with the Charlo, that ain't happening. That ain't happening either. He says Morrell is a complete fighter. I'm telling you, he's the goods. He is the goods. That reminds me, I got to see if I can make a trip back out there to Houston and get to that camp. You feel me? So let's see here. It says, will Bob Arum ever allow Billy to fight any PBC super middleweights? Well, look, my guy, Christian and Billy, I got him set up. He's gonna fight. He's gonna fight Canelo. I know that. I also signed Jaime Munguia, but Jaime Munguia got a fight coming up this month. So what I want, I put Christian and Billy up there. I know Eye of the Tiger Promotions is working with me, but Christian and Billy is the guy to beat Canelo or whatever it is. I have no idea, man. He says, all right, see that's what I'm talking about, man. Shout out L-Dub. See, this is what L-Dub does, man. Yeah, he got it up there, man. He says Jamal Charlo is the new number 6 there in the rankings, right? It's super middleweight. All right. You got Caleb Plant. Yeah, Caleb Plant is a WBA interim champ. So you can have that fight right there. Yeah, that's what I want. I want Caleb Plant versus Jamal Charlo. And man, I need to make I ain't gonna make a phone call. I'll probably send out a text, man, to see if we got anything in reference to Jamal Charlo. What else is out there? Sergey Derevyanchenko. Yeah, he had that fight there with Christian and Billy, man. That was a wild fight, man. That was a definite wild fight that they had there with Derevyanchenko. I still don't know how Derevyanchenko got through those 12 rounds. Just being honest, I still don't know how he got through those 12 rounds. Let's see here, man. So yeah, I'm gonna see if I could get something in reference to Jamal Charlo, because it's been some time since I've had that the live conversation there with Coach Ronnie Shields. Usually that's scheduled for Tuesdays there, with brother Joseph Herron, but we'll see if we get more information there from Coach Ronnie, if he knows if Jamal Charlo is close to being in camp and getting things done, because we've had some things as far as like some pictures of Jamal Charlo looking like he's out there in camp and working with like I said, Osvari Morrell Jr. or whatever it is. So yeah. Yep. I mean, it's an easy sell. It's an easy sell, man. What did the 5 figures say to the face? I mean, there you go. So you already got the build up. It's already there. The only thing is press conference, you got to have about, I don't know if you got to have about 4 or 5 security people right there on stage when those guys come up. Or I don't know how the face-off would kind of work, man. They probably have to be like 4 or 5 feet away when they do a face-off or something. I don't know how that would work. But yeah, that would definitely be a good bout there for those 2 fighters. I would like it, but in reference to Jamal Charlo, I'm not too confident that they would have Jamal Charlo fighting Plant next. I know that they had, the fight there against Jose Senior. Jose Senior. Oh my God. Jose Benavidez Jr. Jose Senior. Come on, man. What am I doing? All right. Yeah, he had a fight against Jose Benavidez Jr., right? Went through the full 10 rounds or whatnot. And hey, it would look like he was, looking pretty well at times, but he just got to get right back in the ring. I mean, that was what, 2022? Like, damn. Man, this thing is like it's almost like it went by just that fast. That's crazy. That's crazy. I thought that joint was that was 2023. I'm like, man, it's just, man, it just looked like it was like a blip on the radar. Just being honest, it looked like a blip in the radar with him coming back there, and that was like over a year ago. So we gotta see if you're gonna have Jamal back in the ring. Maybe against a Caleb Plant. I mean, you got, like L-Dub was saying, you got Jamal Charlo there at number 6. So you could see something right there. We could see something right there. We got new entry here, man. Just this open conversation here on the Box Source podcast. He said Boots keeps getting names like Barrios, Brian Norman Jr., Vergil Ortiz, and they can't come to terms. This is what hurts the sport. Sometimes it's how things, go. You just getting on. The part about Barrios got that offer to be part of that, Jake Paul, Mike Tyson card, and that money is just too much to go with. I mean, to pass up. So went ahead and he fought Abel Ramos on that card. Almost ended up being a full trap for him, but got through it. Now you got to see what's next. But I think they're leaning towards Boots Ennis versus Iamana Stanionis. Stanionis' number one contender is Shakram Giasov, who is a matchroom fighter, and you could have something where you step aside money to Shakram Giasov in order for that unification fight to happen between Boots Ennis and Iamana Stanionis. So I feel like that should be the route there for Boots Ennis, for him to finally unify there at 147 pounds. Lara and Janibek to unify in 2025. Possible. I got to see what's going on with Janibek. From what I heard, that he had like a little bit of a promotional issue. Top Rank, and I think he has like a one local promotion that he deals with from his area. Was it Kyrgyzstan or whatever? One of them former Russian countries or whatever it is. But maybe they could try to work out something for them to fight, because Carlos Adames is reportedly in the works to fight Hamza Shiraz and defend his title against Hamza Shiraz. So you could have a unification bout between Lara and Janibek. I would have no issues with that. Barrios in talks with Conor Ben. Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like, Conor Ben is another matchroom fighter. So it's like, okay, what is Eddie Hearn doing for Boots Ennis after signing him? He got him active. He got him 2 fights within this year, within a few months of each other. Now it's time to have him try to get fights to unify the division. So if you have Barrios there and they're talking about potentially having him with Conor Ben, where Conor Ben still, as far as I know, we still got to get that whole thing clear with the UK. So I have to figure that whole thing out, because Barrios got paid. He got paid for that fight against Abel Ramos. That's mainly why he wasn't going for the fight against Boots Ennis at the time, because he pretty much got twice as much money fighting Abel Ramos as he got for the initial purse for Tank Davis. $3 million to fight Abel Ramos. Yeah, and pass that up. Said where Conor needs to, like, if Boots better wake up. If Conor gets that fight with Barrios, he needs to bounce. He might have to consider that. But like I said, the exception would be if Boots Ennis is able to fight Iamana Stanionis next for the WBA and IBF welterweight titles, then yeah, okay, that's cool. But if it's anything other than that, where he doesn't unify, yeah, he's gonna have an issue. And the thing about it is that particular deal with Matchroom is like either like 3 fights or it lasts like a year after that agreement. So I would say around July of next year, June or July next year would be the end of that particular term or that particular deal with Matchroom Boxing for Boots Ennis. So we got to be able to get that thing locked in. Feel me? It says, Charlotte Tim Taylor, he says, what's next for Big Baby Anderson? Good question. Man, he got beat up by Martin Bacoli. He got beat up by Martin Bacoli. And the whole ordeal with that was more of a management decision. That, they said, hey, we got something here, through Turkey LLC that they're giving this amount of money to fight for you to fight Martin Bacoli. This is too much to pass up. And that's why you ended up having Jared Anderson be there with Sugar Hill Stewart instead of his original trainer, Derry Riley, right? So we got about 1 million plus to fight Martin Bacoli. And you saw that he got beat up in that. And then after that, you seen right after the fight, Bob Arum was like, hey, look, I know you did as good as you could. But yeah, Martin Bacoli is a big, big man. So what we're going to do, we're going to scale you back. We'll have you with a few fights, and we'll get you built back up. But as far as these guys, you're not ready for these guys. Yeah, so there's that. And as far as I know, through Derry Riley, they're looking about, getting back together as far as like that particular pairing, So yeah, probably later this week, I'm going to see if I can follow up with that as far as with Big Baby Anderson and what could be next for him, right? Ron says, hey, you L-Dub got real information when it comes to boxing, no shows, gossip, and other. Yeah. That's me, man. See, that's why pretty much like had the name The Boxing Source, is I wanted to just make sure that I get as accurate information as possible when it comes to stories. Yeah, I could have a section for like rumors or whatever it is, but sometimes with those rumors, they could be leaks. Because if you go on the site, theboxingsource.net, and check the rumor report, check some of those stories on the rumor report and the dates on them, and then see what actually happened days after those rumor reports came out. So yeah, but I don't do gossip. I don't do this guy's this and this. No, I try not to do that because like I actually am there at these events, at these press conferences, at the conference calls, all that type of stuff. Yeah, you do have people that are actually in the media that still do that type of stuff, but I'm not one of those guys. I don't want to be one of those guys. Nah. Nah. I'm trying to be, as fair as I possibly can and try to bring out what's out there as much as I can. You can't, you can have like one side. I'm going to try to bring the other side. There's just one side that's being put out. So there's that. All right, bet. Let's see here what I got here. Like we got about an hour at 8. I'm gonna see if I could get this thing probably like wrapped up here a little bit, because I will talk about the whole thing with the top ranked card here in a bit. So I wanted to touch on that before I roll out. But shout out to those being active here on the live chat. Like I said, man, if you can hit the like button, let people know what's going down. Hit the share button. We appreciate it here on the Boxing Source. Tim Taylor says, will Joshua rematch Dubois or fight the last fight with Wilder or straight up retire? I was there at Wembley Stadium. Wanted to go ahead and experience that, like a big fight there at Wembley Stadium. We had Anthony Joshua versus Daniel Dubois, IBF heavyweight title. We saw what happened. Daniel Dubois scores the knockout win over Anthony Joshua. Initially, they were looking like, hey, we're going to go ahead and rematch Daniel Dubois, but then they scaled back on that. I say scale back on it because if he ends up having another defeat to Daniel Dubois, might as well just pack it in. Because Daniel Dubois is going to be in the heavyweight division for some time. He's going to be in there for some time. And two, at least when I was there live watching, in the second, it was like around the second knockdown or whatever it was, I saw Joshua like slipping and sliding, and I felt like he tweaked an ankle. So I'm like, hey, he probably is like, just not even doing anything right now, or hasn't done, anything since that particular bout. So we gotta see what happens there with all of that, right? I just got a little bit of an update for something, but it's not quite confirmed yet. But before I go ahead and do that, I gotta set up for another guest to come up on here to react to what's going down in boxing news and boxing circles. You know what I'm saying? I'm working towards having this particular person show up for a particular press conference that's coming up this week. If he shows up, you know what? I'm gonna just scale back on that because I just want him to show up at this particular press conference that's coming up this week. Okay, so we're gonna see if we could go ahead and have my guy, Brother Matt from Brunch Boxing, on here on the Boxing Source podcast. He's gonna be reacting to some of these topics here and all of that. But yeah, I really hope he's able to make it out to this press conference. But also, I just got information in reference to Jamal Charlo. They're working on trying to get him on for March 1st. And that's one thing that was talked about on at least here for Matt of Brunch Boxing, that it was kind of talked about, but we'll see if that happens for sure. But that card for March 1st, kind of looking pretty good. Brother Matt, what's happening with you?
Hey, what's going on, man? First of all, I appreciate you having me on. When you say they're looking at for March 1st, are we talking about Cornflake, or are they going to put him against somebody we give a damn about?
If I have to do percentages, I'm leaning like 70% Cornflake. I'm just being honest. I'm leaning 70% Cornflake, 30% somebody else.
What is Demetrius Andre doing with his life right now?
Hey, you should know what I mean. You could get in contact with people that are around, Demetrius Andre. I can't do it right now because I haven't contacted his dad for some time now. So your guess is as good as mine at this point.
Damn. But I hope they build a really good card. I hope they announce the card before the press conference. I'm assuming they want at least the co-main event there at the press conference, so they should be announcing it before the press conference.
Yeah. What did they say, man? What with the information that we gotta be like, folks gotta be there for media about an hour before or something like that. So hey, maybe they do have something that's going on. Okay, it says at 1 o'clock. In media arrival is at about 12 o'clock. Okay, so yeah, hopefully it has something or whatever it is before the actual press conference starts. But yeah, Jamal Charlo versus Thomas Cornflake Lamar. Come on,
Cornflake about to get punched on.
I shouldn't be laughing like this, man.
Listen, you know he getting punched on.
Oh man. I mean, okay. Jamal Charlo would be considerably favored in a bout against Thomas Lamana. Okay, I'll
Be about minus 1450, about minus 1450. That's about right.
man, I'm going to hell.
He's gonna whoop his ass. I mean, I ain't saying nothing wrong. He gonna whoop his ass.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, but you no, that isn't necessarily a fight that you would be looking forward to if it's
No.
like a part of
I
it.
mean, if it's on the pre-show, okay, that's fine. But if that's on the main card, nah. I'm good.
You know it ain't gonna be on the pre-show, man.
It need to be same way they put Stephen Fulton versus Castro on the pre-show. Put Charlo versus Cornflake on the pre-show.
On the pre-show. Oh, not for what Jamal probably would be asking for in order to fight. That wouldn't work.
I guess.
Oh boy, yeah, but we had talked about they're on the brunch boxing episode yesterday. What could have been part of this event, but is it necessarily locked in because there's some issues that had to be straightened out with a certain fighter by the name of Jose Rayo Valenzuela. If he doesn't necessarily have his trainer there, Jose Benavidez Jr., and maybe he can't necessarily have defend his title there potentially against Gary Antoine Russell. Not sure if you got any update on that.
Oh, no update. Nobody knows anything that's going on with Rayo, man.
Yeah.
I guess we'll find out. We'll find out Tuesday. Because that's a big fight. So that's a fight that they would announce before the press conference. So if we don't see that on the card, then we know that lawsuit is probably going to keep him out of the ring for a little bit.
Yeah. Shout out Tim Taylor here on the live chat. He says, could the PBC trust Jamal Charlo versus John Ryder?
What are you talking about? Like what is he talking about? John Ryder. That shit sailed a long time ago.
A long time ago. Well,
first of all, why would PBC give John Ryder a chance when John Ryder screwed them over and pulled out of that WBA title fight with David Morrell? Nobody can forget that.
Yeah, he was like, yeah, but nah, I'm good. He's like, yeah, but nah. And the thing about it is that, like I was mentioning earlier, they got Jamal Charlo now ranked at number 6 in the WBA for super middleweight. But yeah, I don't know about if you could go ahead and have him, like even like you said there with Cornflake. I don't know why they would go ahead and have that. You know what I mean? And yeah, Ryder is like, yeah, he's about done. Hold on, who is it that kind of like mentioned a fighter there, man? I have to go up there a little bit, man. But yeah, I don't think fight with Cornflake. I don't see like what that does to benefit Jamal Charlo at this point. But you were kind of going off and on there. You got the computer thing going on.
I guess
Yeah, I couldn't really necessarily make out what you were saying there on that one. You know what I mean? Nope.